welcome. Let's see here. Oh my God, I can't see all those glasses. Thank you for being here today. Do you want to go through and do the housekeeping?
I will.
Lori? Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is RCEA staff member Lori Taketa speaking. Before Chair Scott Bauer calls this in-person and online hybrid meeting to order, here's some housekeeping announcements. Those of you here, board members, you probably noticed there are microphones in front of you today, fancy new microphones. So these are on throughout the entire meeting. They're live, hot through the entire meeting. Try to be, if you can move it from the base gently, towards yourself. Try to be like about 6 to 12 inches from it. And those of you sharing mics, make like backup singers. Just kind of get close together. Yes, okay. And for staff, any public commenters, we ask that you come up to the podium, because if you don't come up, the mic will not pick up your voice and nobody online will be able to hear you. So if you can, please do so, come up to the podium. We do not yet have an online, oh wait, no, we do have a online participant today, Director Mike Wilson. May we hear if we can hear you? Would you mind turning on your mic really quickly?
Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. So because
You're very quiet on my end.
Oh, thank you. So because we have an online director, all of the votes will be via roll call. For other community members participating in the public comment periods, please click raise hand in the webinar controls or press *9 to raise your hand. Please do that early so staff has a chance to promote you or to unmute you. And public comment may be limited to 3 minutes at the chair's discretion. Emailed public comments are accepted before and during the meeting at publiccomment@redwoodenergy.org. And remote participants, if you experience phone or internet disruptions during this meeting, please notify if possible by calling or texting 707-382-7336, 707-382-7336, or by emailing publiccomment@redwoodenergy.org. That's all for housekeeping today. Chair?
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the January 22nd, 2026 meeting of the RCA Board of Directors to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. Chair Bauer?
Here.
Director Diaz?
Here.
Director Garachi?
I'm here.
Director Jorgensen?
Here.
Director Ramos?
Here.
Director Scafani?
Here.
Director Schaefer?
Here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, she's here. Director Tuttle?
Here.
Director Wilson?
Here.
Director Mike Wilson?
Present.
And Vice Chair Wu?
Here.
There is a quorum.
All right. Thank you. Well, with that, we will jump right into item 2, board appointments. 2.1 is election of officers and community advisory committee liaison appointments. And we'll start with selecting the RCEA board chair and vice chair to serve through January 2027 and authorize them as signers on RCEA bank accounts. Jump in with that.
Yeah, so I think before we start, it's the time of year that we select a new chair and vice chair, and we want to thank Chair Bauer and Vice Chair Wu for stepping in for the past year. And then we also are looking for a board liaison for the Community Advisory Committee. This last year, Director Schaefer was our CAC liaison, and really thank her for her participation. And we did have an alternate liaison, Director Arroyo. Our board operating guidelines does not specify that we have to have an alternate, but we could assign an alternate if needed. And then I think before turning it over to the directors to start nominating, I wanted to turn it over to Director Wu for an announcement, because she's been such a great chair in the past. I could see wanting to renominate her.
That's very presumptuous. But I get it that the vice chair is often the chair the next time, so that's often happens. However, it won't happen this time because the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District Board has voted to terminate our involvement, membership, I guess you'd call it, in this Joint Powers Authority. And this has been going on for a little while, for maybe like a year or two, where the board, the Water District Board, was questioning what is our nexus with energy. And granted, water and energy do go hand in hand. Water District uses a lot of power, and we also generate some 2 megawatts at Ruth Lake. But we kind of feel like right now our board needs to really focus on Water District stuff that's coming up. And so that was kind of another reason why we felt like we need to really focus our efforts and focus our board director energy on the district itself. So while you guys, I love this. I love this organization. I've been here for a while, and saw the launch, saw the formation of the CCA, and then the launch, and all these excellent, super cool projects that RCEA does. I'm sorry to leave it, but on the other hand, we do have a responsibility to my main agency. So with that, this is my last meeting.
Well, I want to thank you for all your hard work with this agency, this organization, your friendship. You will be missed. And
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Scott.
Really.
And this is where I felt like I met a lot of people that I would never meet outside my regular, field of just community. That's another reason why I really enjoyed being on this board.
And just to recognize, you've probably done the math, but you're probably one of the longest serving members of this board, you and Frank at least.
Sherry's been here long.
Yeah. How long? How many years has it been?
I don't know. You have to check
Okay.
LinkedIn. I don't know.
At least, yeah.
I think maybe since 2011 is the rumor I heard. And I will say that we're hoping this isn't actually your last meeting, and that we'll be coming back with some ceremonial items next meeting. So if that is
okay, and I won't charge the district.
But I also would like to say thank you for the,
Thanks.
particularly through the time of, incorporating it and bringing it around. It went through a turmoil time and settled down, and we've been negative, positive, and you've been through all that. So appreciate your commitment.
Well,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. Team effort for sure.
Yeah, I'll add, thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and
Thanks.
thanks again.
All right. Well, on to any nominations. Anybody interested in serving as?
Can I interrupt just briefly? We need to back up and ask Director Wilson to state briefly why he is remote, and if you would like, I can help you with the reason, because we spoke earlier and I know why, but I'll let you.
Yeah, I think I got it. So just I want to thank the board for being flexible in the new law. I'm currently in San Francisco. Tomorrow morning, I have to attend a special meeting of the California Coastal Commission, and it was just going to be too much to try and do this and then make it to that too. So here I am. State agency business, I think, is and there's nobody else in the room with me.
He knows the drill.
Do we need to? Sorry, do we need to talk about the new Brown Act rules, or is that something we should explore later?
I am working with staff.
Okay.
And I don't know if the staff is going to bring forward some changes. I suppose the one thing I can say, just because some of you might be confused, there is different treatment of JPAs than there is of cities and counties. And so to the extent that you see something a little different going on with this agency, it's because it's a joint powers authority. There are a lot of rules that are the same,
And this has to do with the teleconferencing. So staff will bring forward some recommendations, I believe. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I think there's something in the packet actually describing the situation. So I don't know where it is, but I'm pretty sure I read it in there.
And you're right. So let's see if we jump in forward for nomination or any ideas. I like to say that I've appreciated this year. I've learned a lot, and it's challenging, and I would love to continue, but just given my involvement in a lot of other agencies and organizations, it would be a challenge. And but I have appreciated my time and working with staff and everybody else, Sherry, and so thank you for letting me serve. And look forward to somebody else, taking it up. And I will, if I can. And you want to go ahead? Go ahead.
No, you go. You what? What were you gonna say?
I do have a nomination, and through some discussion, I'd like to nominate Michael Garaci for chair.
Cool. I was also going to mention that and second that if you are interested in serving as chair. But I would also say that because we're not in that nice, lovely situation where we get to have a vice chair that's kind of thought about it and be able to step into that role, I would offer myself as tribute because I've done it before, at least if to be vice chair if you are interested in being chair. So if folks would be amenable to that. But if anybody else is interested, please, because it's a great way to, again, I think if you're on the edge and really feeling like, okay, I'm starting to get it, I understand RCEA, I want to jump in, like being either in that CAC liaison role or, that vice chair role is really, I think, a good way to start to, get to have more time with staff and understand what's going on and be really clued in. So I would say that.
So moved.
Excuse me, I'm honored by the nominations, and if it's the board's wish, then I'm happy to serve as chair.
What do we do
and
now?
Mike, yeah, well.
Is anybody else interested, I guess, is the question. Nope. All right. Well, seeing none, is it a roll call vote? Or
So can I clarify? So
Sure.
Director Mike Wilson made the motion for Director Garaci to serve as chair, Director Schaefer to serve as vice chair. Was there a second to that?
I will second that.
Thank you. So roll
Yeah.
call vote.
thank you.
Chair Bauer,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Yes.
Director Garaci,
Yes.
Director Jorgensen,
Yes.
Director Ramos,
Aye.
Director Scafani,
Yes.
Director Schaefer,
Yes.
Director Tuttle,
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson,
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Wu.
Yes.
Unanimous, motion passes.
Excellent. Cool. So I don't know if Lori, do I turn the reins over now?
No, we need a board liaison to the Community Advisory Committee.
Yes. So who wants to volunteer for that?
And so I will say our meetings are every other month, Tuesdays at 6 o'clock. We try to end by 7:30, and we meet at the Jefferson Community Center.
Which Tuesday, which week of the month?
It is the second Tuesday of the month,
Every odd number.
odd number month. So we just met January 13th, and so we won't meet again until March.
I would, but I have that's my city council. Okay, on that. Okay.
That's also our city council, our
our second meeting of the month.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just gonna say, like, I'm happy to keep doing it. I have missed some meetings. It's really hard for me because I live in Arcata, I work in Eureka, and then I gotta go back and forth. You know, it's a tough late night thing for me on like my one, free late night of the week. So, but I will, it's every other month. So, but again, great way to learn about the organization, folks. I recommend that you try it out if you haven't done it yet.
Sir, if you volunteer as tribute, I'll be the backup.
Excellent. We can do that. So moved.
I'll second that.
So this is, again, for, motion being for Director Schaefer to be CAC liaison and Director Bauer to be alternate liaison.
Yes.
And roll call vote then?
Yes, please.
Is Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Diaz?
Yes.
Director, Chair Garachi?
Yes.
Director Jorgensen?
Yeah.
Director Ramos?
Aye.
Director Scafani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Yes.
Director Tuttle?
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson?
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson?
Yeah.
And Director Wu?
Yes.
Unanimous motion passes.
All right, well, we'll continue. Thank you, everybody, for volunteering. Appreciate it. We'll move on to item 2.2, Board Finance Committee member assignment. I guess the first question is determining whether the Standing Finance Committee should continue its work, correct?
Yes, and then if so, nominating or getting volunteers for the subcommittee. I will say that historically we meet once to twice a year to review the draft budget, and then we usually put a hold on the calendar in case in May the board would like revisions to have the subcommittee review before it's adopted in June. For the most part, we haven't had to have that second meeting. And then if we're making large changes at mid-year, we would ask the subcommittee to meet prior to coming to the board. It is a Brown Act body, so we do have to notice and follow the Brown Act requirements. So this is different than our ad hoc subcommittees where we can communicate via email or more informally.
Who all was on last time? And
Yes.
Fran?
Last time was Chair Garache, Director Ramos, Director Bauer, Director Jorgensen, and Director Frank Wilson.
I'm happy to continue.
I will too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll continue.
And I'm willing to continue.
I will.
Okay.
Right. Do we need to vote on that?
Can I say back, so this is Chair Garachi, Director Bauer, Director Frank Wilson, Director Jorgensen, and Director Ramos. 5.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need a roll call for that? I think we do, right? No?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Can we get a second?
And so the motion was by who, I'm sorry?
I guess it was me.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And this is for both items, correct? The standing committee continuation as well as the members. Okay.
Correct.
Ready for the roll call?
Yes.
Okay, so Director Bauer,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Yes.
Chair Garachi,
Yes.
Director Jorgensen,
Yes.
Director Ramos,
Aye.
Director Scafani,
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer,
Aye.
Director Tuttle,
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson,
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson,
Yes. Yes.
and Director Wu.
Yes.
Unanimous, motion passes.
Excellent. Well, with that, we'll move on to reports from member entities. Item 3. Anybody have anything to report? Yes, you do. Sherry.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to point out, again, we have this connection between water and power. During the fire in Arcata, I was watching it online. It was horrible. But the one thing I was pretty sure of was that we were going to have enough water. And then when I talked with Dale, the superintendent, he said the other thing that they did was they made sure when they knew that they would have to run the pumps, so they made sure to run the pumps on the generators instead of just regular PG&E power, because it was during the day. And if we ran it on PG&E power, it's more expensive. So it was actually cheaper to run it on the generators instead. So that was our big contribution to the Arcata fire.
And we needed more water pressure. That was a moment where that was a critical moment.
Yeah.
And it happened, so.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done containing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, that's to everybody, because I'm pretty sure every single one of your jurisdictions, fire departments or volunteer departments showed up and helped out. So it was, definitely a countywide effort.
I have an announcement as well.
Yeah, please.
So I think this is pertinent, especially because RCEA was and continues to be an important partner with the terrorist group, which, as you all know, is intending to build microgrids in the Hoopa, Yurok, Karuk areas up near Wichpeck. Despite the challenges we've seen with federal funding, tomorrow I'll be going to the site where Yurok plans to locate its battery storage, its solar array, and build the fundamentals of its microgrid. So the funding has been put in place to start it. I'm really excited about that. The tribe will, through Merck, be building its own microgrid, and we will have the fundamentals to be able to island when necessary and provide backup power. So the last critical component of the microgrid really is another generation system, which is planned for the Kickpell Creek. That's a hydro system that would be producing around 1.5 megawatts of power. That's partially funded, and given that there's some momentum, I think it may be something that this board might want to discuss. Is that a project that RCEA might want to be involved with? Anyway, don't expect to have that conversation now, but we're celebrating, so putting that out there.
Great news.
Very nice.
All right, any other reports?
I have a quick one. I just actually got off the board meeting with Civic Well before I jumped into here. There's a couple announcements. I mean, I know some of you know about the Yosemite conference that's coming up through Civic Well. It's a good one in relation to these things, but also and maybe Beth can forward these to the rest of the board. There's also a policymakers online workshop related to a lot of these issues, and then the SEEK conference, which some of our staff goes to in June, is great for just really getting into the nitty gritty of the technical issues around renewable energy at all levels, and so that's later in June. And if we could just get something to the board members about that, that'd be awesome. But so those are 3 great opportunities.
So just to note, thank you to Director Wilson. Those are included, except for the online forum. So if you could give me the information about that, but those were included within the ED report, those opportunities, and I'll go into that in a little more detail when we get to that section.
Okay, I'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Just to back up, Mike, Civic Well is awesome. The Policymakers Conference is amazing. I've been like 3 times now, and I'm going to go again this year, and I recommend it highly to anybody.
Thank you.
It's a good one.
All right. With that, we'll move on to oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the board or submit written communications on matters not on the agenda at the conclusion of all oral communications, the board may respond to statements. Any request that requires board action will be set by the board for a future agenda or referred to staff. Anybody in-house here? No? Anybody online?
Nothing online.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll close item 4 and move on to the consent calendar. Item 5, all matters in the consent calendar section are considered routine by the board and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, board members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. Has anybody want to pull anything? Okay. I don't think anybody from the public. No one from the public has reached out. Anybody online? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I believe it's a roll call vote.
Yes. Sorry. Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Diaz?
Yes.
Chair Garachi?
Yes.
Director Jorgensen?
Yes.
Director Ramos?
Aye.
Director Scafani?
Aye.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Aye.
Director Tuttle?
Aye.
Director Frank Wilson?
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson?
Yes, and apologies again for requiring this.
And Director Wu?
Aye.
Unanimous motion passes.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 7, staff reports, and I believe Executive Director first.
Yes, thank you. We're trying something a little new this agenda. So we've moved up the ED report from the very last thing. Not that I, felt really like you guys were loving the report at the very end. But the other thing I've done is given more of a narrative staff report. I think there's just a lot to update everyone on. A couple benefits of the narrative, give us a little more opportunity to discuss if we wanted to. And then also, I don't have to reiterate absolutely everything in the report when we have a packed agenda like we do this evening. So with that, I'm not going to go through all the items. Feel free to ask me questions about anything that was on there or anything else. But I did want to highlight a couple of them that are pertinent. One, I wanted to mention that we're going to be launching our Supporting Our Communities program. We have about $25,000 in marketing funds that we had set aside for sponsorships at the beginning of this fiscal year. And we've been looking for creative ways to make these marketing funds actually give back to our community. So this is one way we can do that. We would be sponsoring events that help us increase awareness about RCEA and our programs and services. And we would be having an application form for that so we could see, is it a key community event? Who all is it reaching? Does it have, broad attendance so that we can get our name out in front of more people? So we'll have guidelines for that. We are going to be doing a press release, so that's why I wanted to bring it up so that you're not surprised if you see it. That's what it's talking about, and these were funds that were budgeted at the beginning of the year. The other thing I wanted to mention was the PG&E based services charges. This was formerly the income graduated fixed charge, which I looked back, and I think in late 2024 there was a full presentation, so I'm not sure how many folks could possibly remember from that. But this is in response to Assembly Bill 205. It's been in the making for a couple of years, and this is coming online beginning March of this year, and PG&E has already started explaining this on bills. So I wanted to bring this up because you may get questions from your constituents. I know I had at least, when Director Arroyo was here, she had mentioned getting questions about it already. So it is something that's all happening on the PG&E portion of the bill, not the RCEA portion, but we do anticipate questions about it. And basically, it was a bill that was passed to really with the idea that it would increase transparency about how certain fees were collected, things like customer billing and grid connection and the public purpose charges. So there'll be a line item that's a fixed charge on the bill that will explain that. So what I want to highlight is sort of what does this mean for our customers and those receiving the bill? Well, the intent, I think, was originally really to provide some relief for essentially places that had, high heat demands where you couldn't really cut back on your electricity and still, be in a habitable dwelling. So I think it was to help in those cases, have this pulled out separately as a fixed charge as opposed to a proportional share of your bill. In practice, what it's doing, we think we'll see quite an impact locally because we don't have those high heat demands, especially on the coast. So I think who's really going to see their bills go up are sort of lower energy users, those that are either already being very frugal or just, because of our climate, just don't need to use a whole lot of electricity. So those bills could jump, and some of those details are in the staff report as well. So we are keeping an eye on this. We want to be communicating with our customers. It does appear on the PG&E side of the bill, but we would want to provide information. And we can follow up. We'll follow up with an email to all of you, so you have something you can, point constituents to if they have these kinds of questions, to give them more information. But we just wanted to let everybody know that this is happening, and it may impact some of our customers in a fairly negative, or they would experience a higher bill because of it. So then moving on to opportunities for board travel. These were listed in the staff report, but I did want to call out, we are really encouraging board to travel. I think it's a great way to learn more about what we do and kind of see the broader, community choice energy space, and additional things like the SEEK conference that Director Wilson mentioned really tie into our NREN activities. We do have a complimentary registration for the Civic Well Policy Makers Conference that's happening in March. So if folks are interested in that, we have one seat that we could offer a board member. The Cal CCA conference is happening in May in Sacramento, and has pretty reasonable rates for us this year, so it'd be great if people are interested in that to let us know. And then the SEEK Forum, which is in June, is actually that the registration, I believe, is free for elected officials. So we have funds that we can support the travel. Basically, the way it would work, you're treated essentially like a staff member. You get a per diem and a lodging allowance. So please let me know if you're interested in any of these. I can follow up an email on that as well. And then finally, just addressing the slide that's up here, just to kind of, always close out with the amount of community events. This year, or this month, we have the summary from 2025, which is pretty impressive. 37 presentations, 26 events, 3 workshops, and we reached 14 communities. And then we had over 2,700 direct interactive engagements with community members over the course of the year. So really kudos to all of the staff, but primarily the community strategies team that coordinates all of that for us. So with that, I'll end my report and take any questions.
Do you have any questions? Nope. All right, thank you for that. And we'll move on to community choice energy business. Items under this section of the agenda relate to CCE-specific business matters that fall under RCEA's CCE voting provisions, with only CCE participating jurisdictions voting on these matters, with weighted voting as established in the RCEA Joint Powers Agreement. Item 8 is CCE business consent calendar. And the first item is 8.1, adopt resolution 2026-1, adopting the updated energy risk management policy. I'm not sure.
That's a consent, so unless someone wants to pull.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Anybody want to pull that and discuss? I don't see anybody. Can we get them? Public? Anybody out in the public here? All right. With that, can I get a motion?
I'll move to adopt 26-1.
I'll second the motion.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a vote?
Roll call, Director Bauer,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Yes.
and Yurok is non-voting, Director Jorgensen.
Yes.
Blue Lake Rancheria non-voting, Director Scafani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Yes.
Director Tuttle.
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson.
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson.
Yep.
And Water District non-voting, motion passes.
Thank you. On to item 10, old CCE business. 10.1 is a power charge indifferent adjustment update.
Hello. Hi. I'm Faith Carlson, Regulatory and Legislative Policy Manager here at RCEA. We are going to be going through the Power Charge Indifference Adjustment today, also called the PCIA. We anticipate that this is going to be a major policy issue for the next 2 years, and this also is kind of some necessary information to digest the following presentation, the risk presentation. So this is kind of a bit of a primer on that, and also something that you may hear more about in the near future. So some goals for the presentation, just generally outline what the PCIA is, how it affects our rate setting, some recent policy changes around the PCIA, and the impacts of these changes to the CCA community in general, as well as next steps. As for specific impacts to RCEA, that'll be in the presentation following mine. So what is the PCIA? The PCIA is often called a departing load charge, a non-bypassable charge, stranded cost, or exit fee, which is kind of a bit of a misnomer. So to talk about what it is, we need to give some background first. Prior to the existence of CCAs in municipalities, investor-owned utilities like PG&E built or contracted for all of the resources to serve all of the customers in the territory. Later, when munis and CCAs were established, investor-owned utilities argued that they would not have built or contracted for as many resources had they known that they would not have to serve the load for those customers that later departed. This makes those resources stranded assets. In addition, state law guarantees investor-owned utilities full cost recovery for their generation costs. And IOUs must be paid for those costs, even if the costs don't reflect the current value of those resources that they are contracted for or that they own. Therefore, IOUs argued that the costs they incurred on behalf of those now departed customers, like RCEA's customers and other CCA customers, must be paid by those CCA customers. The CPUC ruled that those departed customers must pay the difference between the cost of those resources and the value proportionate to their share, basically like which costs they incurred of that proportion of the PCIA resources. Effectively, what this results in is there's a portfolio of resources that are called PCIA resources, whether they're owned or contracted, and they're broken out by year of customer departure to CCA. These years are called vintages. For example, RCEA's most common vintage is 2016, because that's when the bulk of our customers joined the CCA. We do have some other vintages as other communities joined RCEA. This image here is an example of a PCIA resource. This is Helms. It's a PG&E resource. There's two reservoirs, a lower and upper reservoir with a pump house in between. This resource is worth noting right now because there is an open application at the CPUC for Helms to be maintained and its capacity to be expanded. And they are discussing at the CPUC right now which of those costs should go to which vintages of the PCIA, whether it be past vintages for which this resource was built or future vintages for the upgrade. So to reiterate how the PCIA is calculated, these bar graphs represent what the IOUs paid for the resources on the left in the blue and the current market value of the resources on the right. And then the PCIA amount would be the difference between the two. If the market value of the resources is higher than what they paid, the PCIA can be negative as well, which is something to note. Here I have a graphic that outlines how vintaging works. So we're using 2013 as the example here. A customer that left their IOU in 2013 for a CCA or a new municipality would be responsible for any contracts that were active or at the time that they left. So that would be those that are green. Any contracts that are signed after they left would not go into their PCIA vintage. Any contracts from before they left would also not be in their PCIA vintage. I also have an example of how this appears on customer bills. So you can see the generation credit, which amounts to RCEA's generation costs, and then the PCIA. This is shown on the PG&E portion of the bill. Because customers kind of end up seeing it this way. We are essentially competing with the total of these two numbers in order to stay competitive with PG&E's generation rate. So CCA customers perceive their generation costs as the PCIA plus their generation credit, and we need to make sure that that total is somewhere close to PG&E's generation rate minus the PCIA. Because we're competing with the generation rate minus the PCIA, we have to track both the generation rate really closely and the PCIA very closely. Both of these inputs into our rate setting are, however, outside of our control and are largely under PG&E's control. As the board, you are likely very familiar with PG&E's frequent generation rate changes. We discuss these at times if there's a significant change. This graphic shows the PCIA changes up through early 2025. We'll talk about 2026 rates and 2025 rates on a later slide. You can see that this is very volatile, and it can make rate setting a moving target. Because our rates are a major driver for our financials, this can leave it very difficult to forecast our financials in the wake of these changes. This volatility is one of the reasons that RCEA is conducting our cost of service study. There's a few policy changes that are really driving why we have to have this conversation now. So usually the PCIA is set in a proceeding at the CPUC, California Public Utilities Commission, called the ERA, Energy Resource Recovery Account. This is two proceedings that work hand in hand that occur on an annual basis. One forecasts the IOU's generation costs. There is an ERA proceeding for each IOU. So each year, PG&E forecasts their costs, that sets their rates, and then later they true up their costs, and that can lead to a slight reduction in the rate or a slight increase to kind of make up the difference of if their forecast was off or not. In the same proceeding, they also set the PCIA, which has a similar process with a forecast and a true up. I do want to call out that generation is at cost for IOUs. They do not earn a profit. It's a pass-through cost. They earn their profit on transmission and distribution, and they include their operations costs in transmission distribution. I just want to call this out because we include our operations costs in our generation. We do not have another fee that we can use. Another bit of background that's necessary before we dive into the policy is market price benchmarks. So market price benchmarks is the way that the value portion of the PCIA is set. The ERA looks at the cost, the market price benchmark looks at the value, and then those two numbers are subtracted as we saw in those bar graphs earlier. The market price benchmark is essentially a calculated average based on eligible transactions in the market. They calculate one for just energy only, for resource adequacy products, and another one for renewable energy credits in the Renewable Portfolio Standard program. This average is used to calculate that value towards the PCIA. So there's been some changes to the methodology. I'm going to address the market price benchmarks issue here. So there was a new CPUC proceeding that was opened last year that looked at changes to the Energy Resource Recovery Account process, which is how they set generation rates in the PCIA, as well as the calculation of the PCIA itself. This is an opportunity for us to reform the PCIA across the board, but in the short term, they looked at just changing the methodology for the market price benchmarks. In the decision that came out from that change, they moved from a 1 calendar year average for the market price benchmark to a 3-year average. So as an analogy, market price benchmark is not a term that applies only to the energy market. This is a term that can be used for housing and other products as well. So your home, when you look at Zillow and it says the forecast for what your house is probably worth without having someone actually go and inspect the home, they essentially conduct a similar analysis. They look at transactions for similar homes in your community within a relatively recent time frame, perhaps a quarter to a year. If you look farther back, Home values were lower in the past, so that is going to artificially lower if you include older transactions. You likely want the market price benchmark to be from relatively recent values rather than a longer window. By expanding this window, they have lowered the market price benchmark very significantly. The PCIA has an inverse relationship with the market price benchmark because this is the value that's getting subtracted. The less you subtract from the same number, the bigger your total is, right? So this is driving for a larger PCIA. Additionally, this cycle occurred mid-true-up. Like I said, in the era, you have your forecast and then you do your true-up afterwards. In this case, for 2026, they have taken the 1-year average and then subtracted the 3-year from it in order to come up with this year's PCIA. So we've had a methodology change mid-cycle. There's another change that occurred that's also driving for a swing in the PCIA. So in past eras, when looking at how to treat renewable energy credits being used, there was one methodology. So PG&E, before 2019, had a surplus of renewable power. And through a process that exists, they were able to bank some of that surplus renewable energy in something called a REC, renewable energy credit. Now they are slightly deficient. They are using these pre-2019 RECs now. In past years, they have also used some of these pre-2019 RECs. When they have used those, they would give a credit to the customers that paid for those at the time that they were generated. So as you can see here on that first little row where it says costs, that's all in before 2019. Let's say that RCEA didn't exist at that point. We'll choose the year 2015 for that. And customers paid, they were PG&E customers, they paid for the generation of these RECs. When they then left, and now they're RCEA customers, they receive a financial credit lowering the PCIA for the generation of these RECs as they're used. What's changed? Well, they're no longer getting that credit. So as an analogy, imagine a CCA is a community akin to a roommate in a larger household, in this case, the PG&E territory. That household plans to host a dinner party and charge attendees a certain price, $5 for instance, to cover the cost of ingredients. At this point, you're a roommate and you purchase ingredients for the dinner, but you opt to move out before the party happens. When you attend the party, they try to then charge you, based on this logic, for the ingredients that you had purchased.
That's a good one. It makes sense. That doesn't sound fair.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead, Mike. Director Wilson.
Roommates, just.
Thank you all for bearing with me. We're approaching the end of the presentation. I know this is a really dense one. We also have the impact of the change here. So the total estimated cost of the full PG&E service territory for generation was $3.2 billion, which is actually slightly less than the usual generation costs that we see in eras. As a result, you can see the 2026 generation rate has gone down. This is a win for customers. You also can see, conversely, though, that due to the PCIA methodology changes, the PCIA has gone up between 2025 to 2026 by 232%. If you recall, CCAs compete with PG&E's generation rate minus the PCIA. So for some quick math, up here these figures are shown in dollars per megawatt hour, but I'm going to do this in kilowatt hours. So that's just moving over the decimal point a little bit. So if we take the 2026 rate minus the 2025 rate, that's about 18 cents a kilowatt hour minus 11 cents a kilowatt hour for a 16 cent per kilowatt hour rate as the target for a CCA rate in PG&E's territory. If you look at 2026's rate, it's 12 cents per kilowatt hour minus 4 cents, leaving a target of 8 cents per kilowatt hour. 8 is half of 16. So effectively, in order to stay competitive with PG&E, our rates for 2026 should be about half of our 2025 rate. Generally, in order to compete with PG&E and all other IOUs, which are experiencing a similar change, CCAs are lowering their rates significantly, though most are landing somewhere higher than their incumbent IOU because of the sheer scale of the decrease. So what is RCEA doing in order to respond to these changes to the PCIA and the risk that has been pushed onto us by the IOUs? There's a couple of headlines here related to some court cases that we've been participating in. We're working with CalCCA to pull as many policy levers as we can to stabilize the PCIA. With regards to the 2026 PCIA, CalCCA submitted an application for rehearing related to the market price benchmark change and the banked RECs roommate issue change. They were able to escalate the market price benchmark issue to a higher court. They haven't yet received a response from the CPUC on the RECs issue. While these proceedings could lead to a reversal of the 2026 PCIA and bring it back to a lower value, there is no guarantee that that decision will occur before the end of the year. So for our decision-making purposes, we likely need to assume that the 2026 rate is what it is for now. We also are working at making changes for the 2027 rate. There is an opportunity at the CPUC to try to address the RECs issue for future years, but that change will not apply to this year. And in addition, we are working on policy proposals related to sunset, auction, or other ways to retire or get a share of the PCI resources in the regulatory space. On the legislative front, we are looking at running legislation this year that would require more transparency around the calculation of the PCIA so that we can more easily forecast the PCIA and so that we can more easily estimate potential policy changes to the PCIA. Furthermore, if we do not find success on the regulatory front for our PCIA proposals, we may bring those forward the following year in legislation. Okay, some closing thoughts. We need major PCIA change. Many legislators that we have spoken to, when we tell them that the PCIA is still a problem, their response is that I thought the PCA had gone away. I thought that the PCA was ramping down, when in fact it's highly volatile and it's a major risk to our operation with no end plan. I also want to call out that in the United States, California is the only state that has CCA programs, of which there are, I believe, 18 states, that require customers to continue paying the PCIA in perpetuity. In most other states, the sunset period is 10 years. California IOUs view CCAs as a hedge with their PCIA, so we're lowering their financial risk for them, and we need some change to this practice. So as you go out and meet with other policymakers around the state, please help prime them around this issue so that staff can more effectively work on reform around this. I do have a handout that I'm working on preparing that we will likely follow up via email with a one-pager on some quick facts on the PCIA for you all. Okay, thank you. I know that was really long. I appreciate your patience. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Faith. Any questions?
I just wanted to ask, first of all, thank you. And when you explain things, it's so clear. And I actually, that is a very difficult thing to understand, and I actually think I in a nuanced way, kind of understand what you're talking about here. So thank you. But I wanted to ask, do we see that this impacts, older CCAs more, newer? Is it kind of the same? Does it depend, on that vintage year? Is it worse for customers if it's an older vintage than a newer one? How does that, and then kind of related to that, it seems like this has to be something too that CalCCA is addressing with a coalition of CCAs. So what can our role be in, trying to help this change?
Yes, good question. So I do know that we have had discussions at CalCCA about which vintage is worst impacted. I can't say that there's a trend for the oldest being the most or least impacted. It seems like there is variety across vintages, but I haven't been able to discern a clear pattern. I can try to get some additional information on that to see if something has emerged, especially as the PCIA has finalized. Mm-hmm. Up until this month, we've been working with forecasts only. Yeah. As for how to help, Scott, I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out, Director Bauer. So Scott Bauer is going to be attending Cal Cities, so we're hoping that, as a great example, he could go and speak with folks there about the issue and kind of share some insights on how it's affecting RCEA specifically. Mm-hmm. You will have more information about how it's affecting us specifically after the risk presentation. I think that's a great example. As well, if you meet with legislators, I'm happy to send information for you. Just tap me, and I can send whatever most up-to-date content that we have.
Okay, that sounds good. And then, because the one other thing about the vintage, does it relate to like the CCA as a whole? So is everybody in Humboldt 2016, or does it have to do when that individual customer left PG&E and joined the CCA? Is everybody, like individual customers, different?
Individual customers are different, and it gets pretty complex. But if a customer, for instance, joined Clean Power San Francisco and then later moved to RCEA, they retain their Clean Power San Francisco initial vintage.
Okay.
There can be changes to your vintage if you opt out and opt back in under certain scenarios as well.
PG&E is tracking us.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Faith.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
that presentation. All right, we'll move on to item 10.2, Energy Risk Management Semi-Annual Report. And the bottom line is we're going to look at accepting the Energy Risk Management Semi-Annual Report and provide feedback to staff on the information presented.
Good afternoon. Richard Engel, Director of Power Resources. Very appreciative that Faith was able to give her presentation right before this, because she touched on a lot of things that will help inform our discussion. This is something that we currently do twice a year, semi-annual as it says, to help the board kind of understand some of the risks that we're facing, and the risk policy updates that you just approved earlier in this meeting align with this as well. So I'm going to touch on a few topics. First, I'm going to briefly discuss the declining load topic that we've talked with the board about some before. And then our finance director, Lori Biondini, will come up and talk with you about customer debt-related risk and our overall financial outlook. And then I'll close things up with some discussion of some analysis we've been doing on rate-setting options going forward. So two of our team members, Matthias Konkobi and Forrest Novotny, have done a deep dive on this declining load topic. This was something we talked to the board about a few months ago, and several of you were interested in learning more about what's going on with this. Just because of how much material we have to cover today, we're going to wait till a later meeting to have Matthias and Forrest give you a more detailed briefing on this, but I just wanted to touch on some of their findings because it just relates to the risk management topic. We've seen about a 19% decrease in annual load since 2021. Before that, it was fairly flat. Just seeing, like, kind of breaking down where that decline is happening. Residential customers, who make up 83% of our accounts and a little bit less than half of our load, are where we're seeing the sharpest rates of decline. The other 45% of our load is commercial and industrial, and the remaining 8% agricultural. Agricultural's been pretty flat. We've just seen a population decrease overall, so about 3.3% since 2017. So that's one factor that we think is contributing to this. We have what we call key accounts, which are defined as customers that use more than 1 million kilowatt hours a year. And we've just seen a lot of just closures, a lot of these large customers going out of business to the tune of about 5% of what made up our key accounts since 2024, so just in that short period of time. We do not think that customers opting out of our program are a significant factor here. The opt-outs have stayed really flat over this time period that we've been looking at, so that's not a significant contributing factor. Like I say, we'll be getting a more detailed presentation to you on this in the near future. And with that, I will hand it over to Lori Biondini to talk about debt-related risk and our financial situation.
Okay, so we're looking at a status of our CCE customer debt. Right now we have an active account debt risk of just over $1.6 million, and our active accounts are those that are still with us but have balances that are over 60 days past due. We have dropped accounts debt of little close to $6,000, relatively small. These are accounts that we have decided to drop for non-payment. They're way past that, overdue point, and they are still with PG&E, and PG&E continues to try to collect on our behalf, on everybody's behalf. And then the largest portion of our CCE customer debt is $7.2 million, and that is a total of all the accounts that we have dropped and returned back to PG&E for, as a bundled customer. PG&E then, for whatever reason, decided to close their account, and then at that point they relayed our debt back to us, or the information about what is still owed to RCEA, and then we in return give it to a collections agency. So this is just a look at our active account debt over the past couple of years. We largely refrained from dropping customers during pandemic era, but right post-pandemic, we dropped a bunch of customers. So you see that very sharp drop at the beginning of 2023 of active account debt, and then we just continued to maintain a regular practice of dropping customers for non-payment. And then over calendar years 24 and 25, it's remained rather steady. And I will say that most of these customers are on payment plans. Our account services specialist, Jamie Boone, makes direct contact with many of these customers and helps them get on payment plans or find different rate solutions or things that may be able to help them out. So the inverse of that, of course, less active account debt, more closed account debt. So this is just showing how our total customer debt has gone up, that has been sent to collections, and to date, just over $200,000 of that $7.2 million has been recovered through a collection agency, and we're told that that's about average. So I'm going to pause there for questions about CCE customer debt. Move on. Okay.
Nope.
So next, this is real fun stuff, the financial outlook. So our main driver of the conversation here is that we're looking at much less electricity sales revenue than we forecasted in May 2025. This should hopefully just have been kind of informed by Faith's presentation. We use numbers from the May ERA filing, the May 2025 ERA filing, to inform our fiscal year budget. And then almost right away, forecasts started showing that it was going to be lower generation rates and a higher PCIA rate implemented for 2026. And PG&E released preliminary rates, and that was true. And then by the end, we were seeing a generation rate decreased by 9% in 2026 from what was in 2025, and then the PCIA increased by 20%. So again, you've seen the slide in Faith's presentation, but just reiterating, I'm going to have my little pointer. The PCIA is a fee that only our customers pay. PG&E bundled customers do not pay this. So in order to be competitive with the PG&E generation rates, our generation rates, which include our generation costs as well as all our operations, things that we cannot, recover through any other kind of rate, must be, PG&E rate minus the PCIA. So when this rate goes down and the PCIA goes up, it's a bad combo, as Faith has explained. And this is just another look at how it's changed since what we thought it would be in May when we set our fiscal year budget. The gen rate has gone down, PCIA has gone up. So, what are the actual numbers for this? So our fiscal year 25-26 budgeted electricity sales revenue was about $71.5 million. Our July through November actual billing came in lower to the tune of $3.2 million, partially, likely due to the declining load that Richard just explained. So we're just seeing like less usage that we're, not billing for that we expected to bill for. The increase in the PCEIA starting in 2026, we think will have a negative $5.5 million impact. And the decrease in generation rates, negative $6.2 million impact. So overall, we're looking at going from what, we thought would be $71.5 million revenue to $56.6 million revenue by the end of June of this year. Looking at net revenue, so those new revenue numbers minus what we have budgeted for expenses for this fiscal year, we're looking at what we thought was going to be $6.1 million positive to negative $1.1 million for this year. For next fiscal year, negative $16.6 million, and then fiscal year 27-28, slightly improved at negative $11.7 million. And this is what it's doing to our cash projection. So this is looking out into the future from our current position of a little over $44 million in the bank to by the end of 2028 having about $2.1 million in the bank. So I think we're ready to, I can pause for questions, just clarifying questions, but we have a lot more information to share.
How much is our net position at the end of 28?
2.1 million.
From 44?
Yeah. Current cash projections.
Pardon me?
This is our current cash projections. Yeah.
And so that's projecting out to 2028, but well, I guess that's a really big what-if question. But, if we're going to move to a cost of service model, do we see that changing or maybe even being more volatile or better or worse? Or?
Yeah. So Richard has a lot more information he's going to share.
Thank you, Lori. Good questions to be asking. So yeah, that curve is certainly not what it looked like even a few months ago. Things have really changed, and a lot of it has to do with the PG&E rates and the PCIA. Those are the main drivers, as Lori discussed. So to address financial challenges like this in running a CCA, there are really two main levers that we have at our disposal to move. One is how much we're paying for the energy we're providing to our customers, and the other is how much we're collecting in customer revenue. Assuming that we want to stick to our clean power goals, we've had many discussions with the board about that over the years, but assuming for the moment that you're not rethinking that, there isn't really much we can do to reduce the energy procurement costs. So we are taking a look at customer rates. We've learned that many other CCEs, not surprisingly, are in the same boat and are having to address this same challenge. And a lot of them are not necessarily raising their rates from what they were, but raising the rates relative to PG&E current rates. So we'll look at some numbers here to show you like what that looks like. The circumstances that are calling for a near-term rate change, the higher PG&E, the lower PG&E gen rates and the higher PCIA, are both things that are pretty transitory in nature, and kind of we see resets on these from year to year with that ERA annual process that Faith talked about. So we're not here necessarily talking about a long-term sea change for RCEA. It's more kind of adaptive management to what's going on right now in 2026. We're not necessarily talking about permanently higher rates than PG&E's. Again, looking at other CCAs, a lot of them have gone through phases already historically of having higher rates than PG&E's for brief periods, maybe a few months or a year at a time. And what we've heard in talking to them is that fortunately they don't see a big opt-out response from their customers when they do that, and they have been able to recapture lower rates, as conditions improved. So our implementation plan that we filed with the CPUC back in 2017 when we launched our program had, kind of anticipated, what we might have to do in the event of having to change rates, and there's kind of process that we go through in terms of customer notification on that, which we can talk to you about more in the future. But depending what feedback we get from you on these alternatives that we want to talk about today, we can come back to you with a specific proposal in February and also talk about that kind of customer communication process. So the scenarios we want to look at are just business as usual, what we have right now, the 0.5% discount relative to PG&E, having rates that are just at parity with PG&E, no discount. And then kind of arbitrarily, we picked 3% and 5% above PG&E as rates to look at. And then we looked at some other scenarios that are looking at this through the lens of our reserve policy that the board adopted recently. The policy calls for a minimum of 120 days cash on hand. So we looked at the end of calendar year 2026 and what we would have to set rates at to be at that 120 days cash on hand at that date. There's a kind of more aspirational scenario in the reserve policy of 180 days cash on hand at the end of 2026. And then we looked at an additional scenario of 210 days cash on hand because this was calculated to be how much we would need to have to just basically maintain our current balance that we have right now, which is actually above our reserve target. We've long aimed at about $35 million in the bank, and we're, significantly above that right now. And for all of these scenarios, we assumed that we'd be implementing changes in April of 2026. So that's ahead of when we've been looking at adopting cost of service rates. We've been generally thinking that the beginning of the new fiscal year would be when we would aim to introduce cost of service-based rates. So this is sort of an interim measure to not just kind of let that curve start going down, in the trajectory that Lori showed us. So business as usual, we're still looking, like if we just look at between the start of the fiscal year, June 30th, and the end of the calendar year, December 31st, during that time period, we would continue a downward trajectory to the tune of a little more than $9 million. If we were to go to parity with PG&E, it really only makes a pretty slight difference, $9.1 million versus $9.3 million decline during that time. Even 3% above PG&E improves things by about $1 million, but it's still declining. 5%, $7.5 million decline during that period. So, this range of change doesn't really make a major difference because of how dramatic the PG&E rate drop is right now. And I'll also note, the reason for that PG&E rate drop being so large is because PG&E overcollected from customers during 2025, and the CPUC examined that and told them to lower their rates. PG&E's bragging about this a lot, but it's really something they're having to do because they collected too much money before. So it's such a big change that even going significantly above PG&E like this doesn't really course correct for us all that much. If we look at the cash on hand 120 days scenario, that actually is almost identical to our current 0.5% below PG&E. So it's really just a repeat of a scenario that I already showed you, the business as usual one. Now things do really start to change more significantly if we look at our aspirational cash on hand target for 2026. We'd have to be 18% above PG&E which sounds like a lot, but let me put that in perspective in a minute. To do the 210 days cash on hand, which is what we have to do to really flatten out this curve, and this is the only scenario I'm showing you where we actually are, better off at the end of December than we would be at the middle of the fiscal year, to the tune of about $1 million. That's being about 1/3 above PG&E rates. So that sounds like a lot. But let's take a look. This is just comparing all of those scenarios. The blue bars are against the left-hand vertical axis. That's looking at our net revenue amounts for the current fiscal year. And so you can see that those are all negative outcomes, except for the ones where we're really significantly increasing rates to 18 or 33% above PG&E. Now, when I say increasing rates, I don't mean increasing relative to what they are right now. I mean increased above PG&E's new rates. And then the orange numbers are showing our just cash position under each of these scenarios for the end of 2026. So this shows what impact on residential bills would be. So we used the TOUC rate, which is the one that the great majority of our residential customers are on, to do this analysis. And so if you look at the bottom purple bar, that's the 2025 base. So that's saying that a customer's average monthly bill, just meaning the generation part that they pay to RCEA, for an average residential customer is $50 a month. Now, if you look at how dramatically PG&E rates go down, if we still keep the 0.5% below them, or the parity, which are so close to being the same, we just used a single bar for that here because it's less than $1 difference between 0.5% below and equal rates with PG&E. That goes down quite a lot to $38. And then you can look at the other scenarios stacked above that, and you can see the orange portion shows the increase that we'd be putting on a customer anywhere from $1 to $13 a month in increase above what they would just pay at parity to PG&E under these scenarios. But interestingly, even in that most extreme scenario, we're just getting them back up to paying the same as they are paying under the rates that we currently have now as of January. We've currently arranged to implement rates mirroring PG&E's new rates starting February 1st. So, even under this most extreme scenario, we're just kind of holding the line on, customer bills looking about the same as they do now. This is the same analysis for small business customers. So we use the B1 rate, which is a common one for small commercial customers. And the shape just basically looks the same, just the numbers are a bit larger across the board just because small commercial customer just uses more.
Can you tie that last slide back to the minimum reserve requirement?
Sure. So do you just want to see this one?
Which one of those scenarios protects the minimum reserve?
Lori, do you want to respond?
It's the fifth.
So the fifth one.
120 days cash on hand is what we've set as our minimum reserve target.
Mm-hmm. And then can we go look at the rate change for that?
I think if we go back, keep going back. There you go.
rate change to businesses and residential, that's not shown here though, right? Under the scenario?
Because it would be none.
It would be none.
Yeah, it's the same as the 0.5% below,
But it is shown
which
on
is, yeah. So here, it basically looks like the parity.
Parity.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Jacqueline Har at TA. I just want to mention that the fact that maintaining 120 days happens to be at the 0.5% discount happens to be just kind of a chance of the amount of reserves that RCA has built up over the years. And over the course of 2026, those reserves would be eaten away if we maintain that. And those reserves would be drawn down to get to that 120 days minimum target. And it just happened to be that the calculation of the rate that would get you to that point was 0.5%.
And I will mention that within a month or two from now, we expect to be coming back to you with results from the cost of service study, which is going to be a much more nuanced look at our revenue requirement than what we're doing now. This was just sort of some kind of back of the envelope analysis of here are some scenarios on how much different rate adjustments would mean to us. And again, this is intended as sort of a stopgap thing to consider between here and when we're ready to adopt cost of service rates.
And I'll just note that there's actually a typo on these slides, so that top bar actually should be 38 million, not 33.
So, as I mentioned, we are still working on cost of service rate setting. We've been meeting frequently with NewGen, the company that's working on that study with us. And we do intend to come back and talk with the board again about this. We're not looking for any kind of decision today. This is not agendized as an action item, but we just wanted to get you thinking about kind of our financial outlook and how we might potentially address that with some action on rate setting. And we can also talk to you at a future meeting more about kind of the customer notification process we would want to do for that, to just give our customers a chance to give the board input on this, since it'll obviously be of interest to them. Happy to take any other questions. Either Lori or I can answer them, or Jacqueline from the Energy Authority.
I'd like to give some closing thoughts before we head to questions. And just that, first I want to thank staff, our risk management team, and friends, with Forrest and Matthias helping with visualizations. We put a lot of effort into trying to describe this information. We redid it a bunch of times. It is very dense, difficult information to convey. So I really want to just thank staff for working so hard to have it be digestible. In addition to it being complicated, it is also frustrating and deeply difficult to present this. It feels so unfair, right? We're making progress, we're doing what we're supposed to do, and it just seems like the rug's being pulled underneath us with the PCIA and other things that are going on with rates. So just again, happy that we can get this to you in a professional manner and carry on. But also I think as Richard mentioned, it's not action today, but this is really preparing you for what's to come as we explore cost of service. We may need to take action fairly soon. I think no action is likely not an option for us. If we see, kind of that going down, we can't get down to 2.1 million reserves. That's not a way we can operate. So just kind of prepping you now that our recommendation will be action, and we love to hear more thoughts about that. We know that affordability is deeply important to our community, and it is important to us as well. But sort of long term, as Richard said, these things are transient. If we raise, we get a little out of parity with PG&E right now. That doesn't mean it's permanent. And lots of volatility we've experienced, in the past, will carry into the future. So we always have the option to keep an eye on these things, see how it's going, see how it's working. The other thing I'll say is it's more important than ever for us to be conveying our value to the community that's beyond just more affordable electricity, the type of electricity we're able to provide, the jobs we're able to provide, the hosting NREN and all the energy efficiency programs that we have. So we have this large suite that we need to make sure our community understands our value beyond just a cheaper bill. So I just wanted to kind of lay that before we open it up for questions, and expect a lot more on this in the coming months.
Thank you for that. Like stunned silence. Any questions?
Yeah. The only assurance we have, or the only thing we can budget around as far as duration of these conditions is concerned, would be the time between now and the era next year. And it's impossible really to predict how that PCIA is going to turn out after that hearing.
I think so. So, as we work closely with TEA, we work closely with CalCCA. We do our very best, in talking with other CCAs, we're all in this. We're all, every CCA just about is looking at a similar trajectory. So, yeah, we keep tabs on it as best we can, but it's a bit of a black box. As you heard Faith mention, one of the things we're advocating for is just better transparency on how this thing's even, how the math even works out.
I didn't see the slide where we take over distribution and transmission. Where's that one? Become our own power company.
I would enjoy making that one. She said I would enjoy making that one.
I would love to see it. All right. Well, something for us to think about, obviously. It is discouraging because, we were at a point, 2 years ago, where we were hurting and we recover, and it's it seems intentional almost to try and eliminate CCAs. I'll say that openly. But yeah, hard decisions to make that affect our whole community.
I would agree with you, Scott, and I would also just, if this is happening in California, I think there also might eventually be more federal things that are going to, continue to push CCAs out of the, ability to function at any sort of, profitable or functional level. So
you would think
it's scary, but also it's been so volatile, and so hopefully when we come back in 2 months, you'll say PG&E is raising their rates again, and no, but yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Sorry, but are there any collective strategies between CalCCA, CCAs that have been discussed besides just political action, some sort of collective way of addressing the costs together?
You mean beyond the advocacy and legal challenge? Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I don't know if other folks that are participating in different CalCCA meetings are hearing different, but not that I'm aware of any kind of collective cost sharing or anything like that.
All right. Well, thank you for the report. Appreciate it. We'll end CCE business and resume our RCEA general business and go to old business 12.1 Community Advisory Committee member appointments and recruitment.
Yes, thank you. We could have had this on consent. However, we do need volunteers for an ad hoc subcommittee meeting. So terms for 5 of the CAC seats are expiring March 31st, and we have 4 existing vacancies. So we did have Director Mike Wilson and Director Jorgensen nominate currently seated members for reappointment. So that's one action item to reappoint Chair Lawton, who was actually Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District's appointee, and was gracious enough to then become Director Wilson's appointee. So we appreciate his willingness to serve again. And then we also have a CAC member, Fordham and Leonardi, that are willing to reserve for another appointment of 2 years. But we do have 2 vacant at-large seats. We've already started receiving applications, and we would like to have a board ad hoc subcommittee review those applications and make a recommendation to the board of those appointments. So with that, I will turn it over for questions and volunteers.
Any questions?
And we can have as few as 2 volunteers.
I was just going to ask if it's ad hoc, we can meet and do like email
Yes.
voting and stuff. Okay. Yeah. It's just usually hard for me to get on a Zoom meeting or whatever at a time other people can, but I'd be happy to be part of that ad hoc. I did it once before and it was fun. Who's going to join me?
I'll do it.
Scott. I guess as the CAC liaison and alternate, it makes sense.
Anyone else want to join? Two of us can do it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It should be quick.
Motion in a second.
Yeah.
A motion in a second.
Oh.
I'll motion.
I will second.
Thank you.
Public, do we have any public comment?
We do,
Okay.
Do not have public comment. So roll call vote then.
Thank you.
Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Diaz?
Yes.
Chair Garachi?
Yes.
Director Jorgensen?
Yes.
Director Ramos?
Aye.
Director Scafani?
Yes.
Director Schaefer?
Yes.
Director Tuttle?
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson?
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson?
Yes.
And Director Wu is absent. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to new business, item 13, and then we'll start with 13.1, presentation on Northern Rural Energy Network 2028 through 31 business plan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Patricia Terry. I'm the Senior Portfolio Manager. So I'm the portfolio lead for the Northern Rural Energy Network. So just a quick overview of what NREN is. We were approved in September 2024 with a budget of $33 million to implement programs through 2027. We cover 17 counties, and we have 3 partners. Sierra Business Council that actually covers 14 of Sierra Nevada counties, Lake Area Planning Council, and the Mendocino Council of Governments. And right now we have 2 residential programs that are launched, with the rest of our programs launching this year. And we're already seeing great reach across our county and a lot of achievements. Skipped over that slide just to keep this one very short for you. I know this is a really long, packed meeting. So I wanted to do a brief overview of our business plan application, which will be for our next cycle. So like I said before, our cycle ends in 2027, and we are submitting an application that will cover the next 8 years, a strategic plan for the next 8 years, so through 2035, and a portfolio plan for our programs in the next 4 years, which will be 2028 to 2031. And this is due in March of this year, so it's very early to be applying for those future 4 years, so there's a lot of trying to predict the future in putting this application together. Primarily, we're planning to offer the same programs that we have right now, which cover the residential sector, non-residential, public, workforce education and training and financing. So we aren't planning to change much, but we are planning to grow quite a lot. So as I've shown here, we will be adding Yolo County and the areas of Trinity County that we already have relationships with, mostly through our local government partnership as service territory. So that'll be happening at the beginning of 2028. But at the same time, we're going to be doing a market characterization study of additional counties for potential to join either later in this cycle or in the next 4-year cycle that would be starting in 2032. So that includes Glenn, Colusa, Tehama, and Shasta County. We're also growing our programs. So right now our territory is very large, and so particularly in the Sierra Business Council territory, we will be increasing our goals, increasing our reach there. And then, so we are planning to have a much larger budget in order to support this reach. We were looking at 65 to 85 million. We're still working on this budget right now, so it may be even higher than that. But you know, we will be justifying all of our costs and making sure that those costs match with what the goals are that we're setting and what we are trying to achieve and the number of customers that we are going to make an impact with. So we're currently working on this right now with our partners, and we have a consultant, Frontier Energy, that's assisting with this, putting together this business plan application. Like I said, the submission deadline is coming up in March, and that's going to come quickly, and we're seeking board approval to submit this business plan. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Anyone? Right. Thank you, Patricia. So, there's a motion before you. Anybody want to? Do we go? Yeah, we need to go public comment. Anybody online? Okay. Questions, motion?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the submission of the 2028-2031 NREN business plan to the CPUC.
I'll second.
All right, good motion in a second.
Okay, roll call. Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Diaz?
Yes.
Chair Garachi?
Yes.
Director Jorgensen?
Yes.
Director Ramos?
Aye.
Director Scafani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Yes.
Director Tuttle?
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson?
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson?
Yeah.
And Director Wu is absent. Motion passes.
Excellent. All right, we'll move on to item 13.2, Baker Tilly engagement for tax credit for RCAM and EV charging stations.
Yes, so in late 2025, we engaged with Baker Tilly to see if our RCEA would be eligible for tax incentives through the 2022 IRA for the airport microgrid and our electric vehicle charging stations. The reason why we went online with the airport microgrid in 2021, however, there was a significant issue with the front of the meter side of the microgrid that delayed filing notice of completion. So in 2025, we actually, we had been working all that time on finding a solution, and they were able to change out the equipment that got the microgrid working at full capacity. And so we filed the notice of completion and paid the final payment to the vendor in late 2025, which then triggered us to see if we could recoup some of RCA's costs in building the microgrid project. So just for perspective, RCA's cost to build the microgrid was a little over $6 million. In addition to that analysis, Baker Tilly did look at whether or not the electric vehicle chargers owned and operated by RCA were eligible. So we received their eligibility memo along with a proposed scope of work and budget. They determined that the airport microgrid is eligible for approximately $1.6 million in investment tax credits. The EV charging network did not fare as well. The estimated amount was a little over 40,000, but the cost to prepare and file basically eats into the cost we would receive. So what we're asking for now is approving an amendment to our existing service agreement with Baker Tilly to allow for them to prepare and file for that tax credit, and then approve the scope of work for that work.
All right. Thank you. Any questions on that? Public comment for this? Well, there's nobody. No public comment. Anybody want to make a motion on these two action items?
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll move staff approval.
Okay. Mike
Second?
made the motion. I will second it.
All right. We have
Staff
a-
recommendation, excuse me.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, Director Bauer.
Aye.
Director Diaz.
Yes.
Director Garachi.
Yes.
Director Jorgensen.
Yeah.
Director Ramos.
Aye.
Director Scafani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Schaefer. Director Tuttle.
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson.
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson.
Yes.
And Director Wu is absent. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Move on to item 13.3, PG&E Local Government Partnership Contract to provide energy efficiency services change order.
Hi, hello. My name is Roque Fukui, and I'm a manager under Stevens Demand Side Management Department. And I'm presenting on the Local Government Partnership, which is a contract that we have with PG&E, where we receive funds to provide no-cost energy efficiency reports and assessments to our customers. I put this picture up of the Arcata Community Center's solar project there because that started as a LGP assessment, and from there, you know, we can triage a lot of these projects and customers to move on various initiatives. Next slide, please. So yeah, on the left we have the table of the key performance indicators that we are measured by from PG&E. And as you can see, the previous cycle was a 2.5 contract from mid-2023 to the end of 2025. And what we're moving into is a 2-year contract from January 2026 to the end of 2028. The middle pie chart is the sector breakdown. So we serve mainly commercial customers, but also public entities, which include schools and tribal entities. On the left, there's the table of where the assessments take place. And again, these are no-cost assessments. And you can see it's representative of the population centers, but we really would like to go beyond that to provide services for all Humboldt County customers. Next slide, please. So yeah, I mean, just some of the highlights, and this is really just a very simple sample of what we are able to do through this partnership with PG&E. The city of Arcata, which I presented on the first slide, that moved in, so we secured a Energy Conservation Act loan through the CEC, the Energy Commission, and we supported the project management on those on the solar installation. The fire stations, the 17 rural fire stations that were assessed was done through PG&E, and again, the City of Fortuna, the wastewater treatment plants, Matsil Community Center, and Humboldt's wastewater waste management authority. Those sites were assessed and provided with recommendations. I'd just like to say that, you know, we've done a lot more, but these are just the highlights. And Lori Takeda told me to make it short, so I'm trying to keep it to one slide. But yeah, I mean, if any of your facilities managers or are interested in free no-cost assessments, please get in touch with us because we're able to provide you with that. Next slide, which is the final slide. So yeah, what I'm recommending here in this staff report is the extension of the LGP contract for the next 2 years with an addition of $799,992 budget, which is split between the 2 years with some of those key performance indicators, those KPIs adjusted from the previous contract. Questions?
All right, any questions? See any? All right, thank you for the presentation. Randomly. Or anybody from the public? Obviously, no public comment. Okay, so you have a motion is not up there, but the motion is to approve the change order and extend the term through 2027.
I will make a motion to approve that change order as written in the staff report.
Second.
Recommendation.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Diaz?
Yes.
Chair Garachi?
Yes.
Director Jorgensen is absent. Director Ramos?
Aye.
Director Scafani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Schaefer?
Yes.
Director Tuttle?
Yes.
Director Frank Wilson?
Yes.
Director Mike Wilson?
Yes.
Director Wu is absent. Motion passes.
All right, thank you, Lori. Move on to item 13.4, discuss regional climate action plan implementation.
Yep. Thank you. I'll be taking this one. Beth Burks, Executive Director. So the Regional Climate Action Plan was approved by the County of Humboldt on December 16th of 2025. It is many of you know because this has also been going through your own jurisdictions, but it's a collaborative effort between the county and all 7 cities to really take a regional approach to addressing climate change. RCEA has held various roles in the drafting of this plan over the years and has continued to participate in ongoing meetings about plan implementation as time has gone on. A cornerstone of the strategy in the RCAP is to establish a regional climate committee comprised of representatives from each jurisdiction and then also representatives from the Humboldt Transit Authority, Humboldt County Association of Governments, Humboldt Waste Management Authority, and RCEA would all be members of this regional climate committee. And the other cornerstone implementation measure is to fund and hire a climate program manager position to lead the coordination of all of the RCAP efforts. So most recently, the Humboldt County Association of Governments has been exploring taking on the role of essentially hosting the Regional Climate Committee and the Regional Climate Program Manager position. And through that exploration and working with a regional working group of staff from all the jurisdictions and member agencies, they have also now asked if RCEA would be willing to also explore, could we host it? Could we host this regional climate committee? Could the climate program manager be a RCEA staff person? And we would host that position here. The idea being that, I think that both agencies have a lot of overlapping missions in terms of overlap with the climate action plan and just kind of seeing, who has the best fit and the most capacity to take this on. So when I was approached with this question, kind of the first thing I did was look at kind of go back to the core of our purpose here at RCEA and see, does it fit with our joint powers agency or our joint powers agreements, and does it fit with our mission and our strategic plan? So Lori, if you could advance the slide, or someone, thank you. So this is a chart from the Regional Climate Action Plan showing, where the bulk of the emissions are coming from. It is transportation at, the largest percentage of the emissions challenge. And I think that is, originally the nexus that was seen with the Humboldt County Association of Governments, which is the regional transportation planning agency. However, we also have in our strategic plan goals that address transportation, including reducing vehicle miles traveled and vehicle electrification. So there's definitely overlap there. I think overall, when it comes to our strategies and our own strategic planning, our first strategy is regional energy and planning coordination, and it says that RCEA will take a leadership role to develop and advance strategic regional energy goals through economic development, funding, planning efforts, and education, and specifically mentions assisting and implementing climate action plans. So I think we're very much in line with our own strategic goals to at least consider the option of this this program, RCEA hosting this program. So next slide, please. HCOG has been exploring this and has done some great work, and I think it looks like the slide's a little bit difficult to see, but this is kind of what's come out of the working group at the staff level of how this might function. So I'll just read it out since it's difficult to see, but there would be a Regional Climate Technical Advisory Committee. This would be a staff, or has so far been envisioned as a staff level committee, and they would be really, kind of giving instructions to the climate program manager, who would also be coordinating with all the member agencies and all the cities in the county, including also all the JPAs that have a role in this climate action plan. And then they would report to whatever JPA takes us on, the executive director, and that JPA board would essentially become the regional climate committee with the additions of the other JPAs, the ones that are listed at the bottom. So that would look like whatever JPA hosts this, having almost like a policy advisory committee role, having a couple extra members just when we're making decisions only about the climate action plan. So this is one way the group has envisioned it. It doesn't have to be exactly this way, but this is basically what we're being asked to explore. And then next slide, please. The regional climate manager position is essentially the position that would lead and implement the monitoring, or lead the implementation and monitoring of the regional climate action plan. They would facilitate the committees and coordinate with all the regional partners, pursue outside funding, so there'd be a big grant writing component to this. I will say through the work at HCOG, they do have initial commitments from member agencies to participate in the funding of this program or this position. So we'll be looking at a cost sharing situation to fund the position and looking at an initial 5-year term with the hope that eventually the position would be offset with grant funding. And final slide, please. Next slide. Oh, sorry. So what we're looking for today is really to provide direction to us. Is this something we want to continue exploring, and what would it look like? And if it is something the board is interested in continuing exploring, we would come back for more decisions. We'd be taking feedback from the working group. We'd be coming back with like a funding and staffing plan, sample MOUs with the jurisdictions about how we would cost share the position and how authorities would work. Preliminary discussions with Nancy, we don't believe there's any need to make changes fundamentally to the joint powers agreement to address this. It already is in line with our strategic plan and the purpose of our organization. I will say, I think, it really is meant at this point to be an exploration. I think, we're really, wherever the cap ends up, it will likely be its home forevermore. So I think we're just really, as a region, a lot of effort has gone into creating this cap, getting it adopted, and we want to see it live on in a really meaningful way that brings benefits to our region for years to come. So that is really the interest of having, just options to consider and figure out, where this thing should live and who can host it. So with that, I'd like to open it up for discussion and love to get some questions and feedback.
Thank you. Any feedback, questions? Yes, Sarah.
I just wanted to maybe hear, so would this, how does staff capacity feel about that, I guess, is the big question. And, is there the funding within the cap to be able to hire additional support for that? What do we think?
Yeah, I think as far as staff capacity, it does come with an additional staff person. I will say that out of the 39 measures in the cap, we are already kind of on the hook and agreed to participate in at least half of them. So with not even taking on this role, we will be deeply involved in this effort. So that's one thing, just as capacity goes, we're kind of already committed in that form. But in terms of do we have capacity to take on this extra position, in some ways I think I'm a bad person to ask because I thought I had capacity when I had 4 people, and I certainly think I have capacity when we have 40 people. So, I think it's very in line with our mission. I think that, we have people motivated to work on this. I think that, again, we're already going to be doing so much of the work anyway. And then it really, the long-term longevity of this is the grant funding piece. How much can we offset this position with the funds coming in? I will say a couple years ago that looked really different. It felt like there was just surplus money everywhere, and doing this kind of regional work was really being supported through many different entities, and it kind of felt like the sky was the limit. That is not the case now. It doesn't mean that that won't be the case in the future. But for right now, I think we have to be very conservative. I think it's really shows the commitment from, with everybody having tight budgets, the commitment that the various jurisdictions are making to fund this position. I think we also want to be really clear in, if we are to go and develop these MOUs, when we see those financial commitments, sort of, you can't pull out mid-year. We want to have some protections in there that give us some assurance. It really is envisioned. The working group has kind of said, let's plan for a 5-year position. So, for example, in your jurisdictions, when your staff come and talk to you about this, they're going to be saying, hey, if we're committing to this, we're committing to it for this 5-year term. That is so we can get those grants flowing, right? It's going to take longer than 6 months to see those things written and applications, accepted, returned, and actually see those dollars flowing. So I think we'll want good protections around that, but also, knowing that we're kind of working in these 5-year increments so that we don't overcommit as well.
Yeah. Great. I would just then, in response to that, say that I think this is a good idea, and I think that, it's a nice nexus to be in the sense too that having a staff of 40 as opposed to HCOG having a much smaller staff, that we have those resources to be able to find the answers to questions, have support from experts in their field that are anything from all of these things that CAP is going to address. So and you've got to work on it, Beth, from many different ends too, and I think that institutional knowledge will help whoever's in that position be able to make the most of it. So I would definitely support exploring this.
I would as well. I have the same capacity in funding questions, and so appreciate the questions and the answers. And beyond that, I think climate action is so much going to be connected to government responses and the nuance of how this whole network of energy and relationship between parts is happening to create the situation we're in, and how it could be changed to fix it. So, those are things that the staff understands, so I think we're in a really good position to do it.
Yeah, thanks for that. I agree too. I just think, I guess I have a question, because I know it was explored that HCOG would house this position, which kind of makes sense, right? Transportation. What happened?
I think one thing that happened is potentially related to some of the transitions that have gone on here at RCEA. I think there may have always been an expectation that the CAP was going to at least partially live with us here. And I think given our own transitions, and maybe we weren't in a position to be as vocal about speaking up. So when there was sort of this vacuum, it also makes logical sense if it lands at HCOG. Again, that transportation nexus was there. So I really think that could be part of it. It's just, that was brought up at one of the most recent meetings of sort of like, we always thought that this would be one of the options we could consider. I think we're fully staffed here now, for the most part, and I think we're ready to, be able to consider that.
Okay. I just say the last comment is about funding, right? That it shouldn't, hopefully, it doesn't come upon or put upon RCEA to fund it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will. But.
Yeah, and we'll want to describe, I think that there's, what we've seen the jurisdictions be willing to commit to is funding the position. And I want to be clear that there will be ancillary costs, right? And to some extent, we would be bearing those anyway, because like I said, we're already sort of embedded in this, and we're, sort of lead or support on half of the, the implementation measures. So we already would have been putting some skin in the game in that sense. But, clerking a committee, all of that, those ancillary costs, I think, at least in the current drafts that have been circulating, I think that those costs aren't necessarily fully recoverable. So that would be, extra effort for a clerk to clerk another meeting. It's still, to remain to be seen if that ends up, this sort of technical advisory committee, if that ends up being a Brown Act meeting or not, that makes a big difference on how we clerk it, right? Yeah. So, just trying to figure all of that out. I think those things need to be explored, and when we come back with a staffing and funding plan, I want to present some of those assumptions of here's how much sort of our staff time that we wouldn't recoup, how many hours we'd expect to spend on this, and again, some of those we would have been spending anyway.
All right. Anybody else? Frank?
So the whole idea to start this off with is that we're doing more of an explore. We're taking with our existing people that we have. We're not hiring anybody new.
No, we would explore hiring one additional position as the climate program manager position, or may have a different title, but that's essentially the role that's envisioned. And there is some commitment from the cities and the county to provide funding for that position. So it wouldn't be a solely RCEA funded position.
But we don't have anybody that's committed to this point.
Well, everything's
that putting up a dollar bill,
or everything's still in draft form, but there is some financial commitments. Like we've seen at least a draft. This working group has kind of been working on expectations, kind of splitting it out. The way it's landed is sort of proportionally to population. So the county bears the most responsibility, then Eureka, then Arcata, and so on. Looking at basically what is the salary benefit package for that staff member, divvying that up population-wise between all the agencies that are adopting the Regional Climate Action Plan.
And that's still to be determined?
Yeah.
Okay, so at some point, there's a point, but we get the one employee will be a part of RCEA. Isn't there a point where when we get to 40 is the number I've been told all along, that when we hit 40 people, some rules change about what we have in the HR to do?
It's 50.
It's what?
50, 50.
It's 50 now? Has that just gone up, or has it always been that way?
Yeah, it's always been 50.
Okay, good enough then.
I'll just jump in for a second here. I'm in favor of this. There's a host of reasons why, but I don't want to belabor or make the meeting extend too much longer. But I will say that there are many regions that have what they call resilience or climate action or officers or whatever that position is called. It makes a lot of those jurisdictions and JPAs eligible for other funding that we cannot avail for or can get really as easily in Humboldt County. So part of the strategy is I'm hoping that this position actually creates eligibility for more funding for these programs in the county itself and interjurisdictionally. So it's the hope that it's a net generator, and it has been that way for other jurisdictions. So we just don't have a position like that in Humboldt County yet.
Anything else? I think, so in general, I think it's supportive. Let's move forward and see what it looks like.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Chair. There was one public comment, a written public comment that came in, and it's available at redwoodenergy.org. From Response, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, and they support this.
Thank you. All right, excellent. We'll look forward to that. What are we on to? Item 14, future agenda items. Does anybody have anything?
The Climate Action Plan.
I do have something. And I'll apologize to staff in advance. I would like for us to explore what it would look like to become our own power authority. I mean, taking over transmission and distribution. I think that's the only logical survival or way for us to survive is to become our own, take over everything. And it's insane. I know that. And I don't, and this is something that's not gonna, you can't do it overnight. No, staff is busy. I'm 100% understand that, but what does that look like? There's an assembly bill. I think Assemblyman Rogers is probably a spot bill right now, but it's to allow for municipalities to become their own power companies, take over everything. I'll be talking to him pretty soon about that, but I just don't see any other solution. You know, just PG&E is not gonna, doesn't want us to survive, and I think it would be, it's probably gonna look ridiculous as far as costs go, but you know, financing. But I would really, I don't know if anybody else agrees with that. I would love to see what that looks like. You know, what can we all do? Our individual institutions, municipalities, organizations. What kind of funding can we all provide to make this a reality? I would love to see it. It's a big ask. I apologize.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I think it is a big ask, but I think that we can come back, not next month, but later with maybe a little bit after budget season might be good. But come back with some more information. I mean, I think there's things to look at. You know, there's power cooperatives and other areas that are an interesting model. So I think we can, you know, kind of expand from even just kind of focused on like a public utility district, but look at other ways it's worked other places. There's some lessons learned. I think San Francisco, Clean Power SF, City and County of San Francisco, they've been trying this, they've been at this a while, and could share some stories with us about how that's gone for them, and sort of what they've had to invest to get as far as they've gotten. So I think we can maybe make this a multi-part report back. And yeah, I think there's plenty of interest in us gathering some information.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, I love it. UROC has been you know, looking to accomplish the same thing: energy sovereignty, ownership, and so, you know, we could learn a lot from this investigation, and I think RCEA could also be a valuable partner in helping other communities transition to such an arrangement. So, yeah, I think it's exciting.
Awesome. All right, I guess we're going to move into closed session.
Yeah, so we'll have for those sticking around, that's what the extra snacks are all about. So take your break.
So take your snacks and go sit outside.
Yeah.
What is
Is that something we can schedule? And it's a total like brainstorm.
Yeah, we're recording.
So just along the
5, 6. Yeah, we have one. Okay, Chair. We're back in open session now? Nothing to report? Would you like to adjourn us?
We are adjourned at 7 o'clock.
Thank you very much.